Hi, welcome. I'm Delyse, and today we are going to talk about probably one of the worst ways to try and be heard by your partner. And even though deep down we might know that we are being ineffective, we still feel compelled to do it. There are a number of names or manifestations that we might have for this, such as venting, complaining, whining, being self-absorbed. And then there's when we do it, which might be while driving in the car or texting, or when our partner's trying to fall asleep at night, or when they're trying to do something important. We also might do it when they want to talk to us about something, and we turn it around and use the opportunity to tell them a long list of what is wrong with them or the relationship. A good description of this strategy in communication is called unbridled self-expression. It is used by many of us to express our thoughts and feelings to those close to us. It's called unbridled because when we do this, we are expressing ourselves with no thought to the effect that we are having on the people around us. So we might feel better because we've kind of let out all these pent-up emotions, which are often full of resentment and anger. And we can have a sense of catharsis and release, which makes us temporarily feel better. We want to let it out, and we want to let it out when we are feeling it, with little regard to our partner's situation or choice to give us attention. Most of us at some point may do this, but for some of us, it becomes a habit and a tendency in communication. So we're going to talk about why we do this and what we can do to change it, so our communication is more respectful of others and where we might get more success in being heard. So I have to say that this is, unfortunately, a strategy that I have used in my life. So I want to tell you a little bit about my experience of that. On one side, there was this experience growing up of a lack of attention to my needs and feelings, or being criticized or ridiculed for my opinions. So I learned early on to keep things to myself for a long time. And I have to also add that being a woman in a patriarchal society, as well as a family that had those tendencies, certainly added to feeling silenced and dismissed. So in learning to suppress my feelings and thoughts, it also meant that over time it became difficult to know how I felt. For a long time, I wasn't very expressive or communicative. I tended to be quiet and let people take center stage. And then on the other side, there was this other part of me that longed for attention and expression that had been denied. And with that was a growing sense of dissatisfaction and resentment. So this combination of these two sides for me led to kind of being self-absorbed. So whenever I was given attention, I might use that opportunity to express more than was needed in that moment, as I had a feeling that I had to express everything while I had the chance. It also meant that when I felt safe in an intimate relationship, they were subjected to my feelings whenever I needed to feel them and be heard. In some ways, letting out all that pent-up frustration and pain felt like I had found my voice, and in a way I had. So in my intimate relationships, it was either letting it out whatever it was, or a feeling that I was ignoring myself and what was happening in the relationship. I experienced it very black and white, all or nothing. Both of these sides, the suppression of feelings and the letting it all out, were both because of old wounds. Whenever I felt like I was holding anything in or delaying expressing myself, it brought up this old pain more consciously. In some ways, you could say it was a step in the right direction. I just didn't really know about healthy boundaries or paying attention to how it was hurting people around me. I had to learn that there was like a third option to unbridled and suppression, which was containment and choice. So let's talk about some of the particular ways this tendency might show up in relationships and what to do about it. Number one, discussions become a reason to bring up all past hurts and resentments. So this happens most when there is conflict, and trying to address that becomes an opportunity to talk about everything that is and ever has been wrong with the relationship, and the original point of the discussion gets lost. Nothing ever gets resolved this way, and so whatever you were trying to address just seems to get added to this list of unresolved events, hurts, and unmet needs that are brought up time and again. This way of trying to express yourself by complaining about everything often leads to your partner or people around you building protections by withdrawing, which only ends up reinforcing that need to get it all out each time. The other person can also end up feeling that it doesn't really matter what they do. Nothing is good enough because they are being kind of overwhelmed each time by complaints directed at them. So the second way is, how many of you believe because I'm feeling something, it is my partner's job to listen to me? This belief kind of taps into misguided ideas around support and what emotional intimacy is supposed to look like. If support means attention whenever you need it, this can lead to emotionally dumping on your partner. For sure, it is important to express our feelings about things that we need in the relationship or that we need to repair and so on. But this gets translated into having to share everything that we're feeling or thinking, and that our partner should be there for us at all times. This can also lead to difficulty accepting our partner's need for privacy and space. When we vent our emotions or reactions without any thought to how that impacts our loved ones, then we are in danger of exhausting our partner or simply leaving them with the impact of these negative feelings. Let's be honest, anger and resentment and hostility has a very different impact on us than when we hear excitement and joy. It isn't that anger should never be expressed. It is an important feeling to acknowledge when we have been hurt and wronged. In my experience, though, a kind of unbridled expression of anger and resentment doesn't usually lead to repair or getting what you need from your partner or being heard. This is because this kind of strategy to be heard with this sort of sudden heavy-duty venting is often unexpected, and it can take your partner by surprise, making it more difficult for them to respond how you need them to. And besides, they might be having a bad day themselves, or in the moment, their emotional reserves may be exhausted. So a third way that unbridled behavior comes up is when we interrupt a lot. A lack of containment can come up when we are listening to somebody and are unable to contain our thoughts and feelings, or unable to contain hurtful comments that we want to retaliate with when we are hurt. Unbridled could be described as an inability or unwillingness to wait. How many times have you felt, I will forget it if I don't say it right now? It can also be difficult to learn containment if we grow up in large families that competed for space and attention, and where there is this sense of having to get out your opinion before someone takes over. And the fourth way this comes up is at those times when somebody has not been contained about what they're expressing, and they come back with, I'm just being honest, or I'm just expressing my feelings. The truth is, when we say this, we are not in that moment caring about the impact we are having on others. People will say this defensively in response to being challenged about saying something hurtful. If we truly want to be honest with our partner, perhaps it starts with recognizing our intentions, so being honest with ourselves. So, things to consider in working on this. There are two parts to it as I see it, how we start and how we continue. What do I mean by how we start? It is about reflecting on what is going on in the situation, first of all, and respecting your partner's space. If you want to be heard, is your partner in a space to hear you? Create that space. Don't force it. If they haven't been given the opportunity to prepare themselves, they are more likely to become irritated, overwhelmed, or even a bit intimidated by the forcefulness of your words or tone. So secondly, just a stream of complaining isn't useful, and we can only repair one thing, one situation, one experience at a time. So consider what you want to happen before you begin. Change complaints into requests. If it is just going to be a list of complaints without a request, it is unlikely that is going to lead to any kind of repair or resolution. So it may be important just to give some thought to what you might want to request out of any dissatisfaction you might be feeling. Taking that reflective moment can be important in helping to self-soothe and relax and consider what your goal is to present what you need to say in a less kind of hostile or forceful manner. And then there is, what do I mean in continuing? This is when the conversation starts off on one topic and we start to bring in a long list of grievances. Stick to one thing at a time and resolve that and only that. If you veer off, just pause, stop, and come back to what is relevant. You will feel much more successful if you focus on one thing at a time. I want to end on a few words about the difference between being unbridled, suppression, and containment. Often people feel like if they're holding back in any way, then they're suppressing their feelings. Unbridled self-expression relates to the boundary of containment in relationships. which is about being mindful of what you want to express and being mindful of the impact that's going to have on your partner. Containment isn't suppression. Containment is a mindful decision about what you want to express and what not to express, what is appropriate and what isn't in any given situation. Suppression is an automatic response based on fear and control of emotional expression. That if I express this, something bad is going to happen. And so there's an automatic response of keeping it in. So I hope this video was useful and gave you some things to think about. Leave some comments about your experience of being unbridled or suppression, or any questions and comments that you'd like to leave. Look forward to talking to you next time.